Hello again. I'm here with my collection of Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, and I think I found one that you'll like. It's a short little fairy tale, so it'll be just enough time for you to get nice and relaxed, but probably not fall asleep like you might with a longer one. And I'm imagining that maybe as you are listening to this fairy tale, that you're in a comfy, cozy bed with all your blankets on top of you, and you're tucked in and you're warm. Or maybe you're on a couch with a cat or a dog beside you. Or maybe you're in a big cozy chair. Wherever you are, I'm hoping that you're letting go all the craziness and worries of your day, and that you'll let go of everything and enjoy this little fairy tale that I'm about to read to you. So maybe close your eyes, turn off the lights, and I'll get started reading. This fairy tale is called The Little Match Girl. Most terribly cold it was. It snowed and was nearly quite dark, and evening, the last evening of the year. In this cold and darkness, there went along the street a poor little girl, bareheaded and with naked feet. When she had left home, she had slippers on, it is true. But what good was that? They were very large slippers, which her mother had hitherto worn. So large were they, and the poor little thing lost them as she scuffed her way across the street because of two carriages that were rolling by dreadfully fast. One slipper was nowhere to be found. The other had been laid hold of by an urchin, and off he ran with it. He thought it would do very well for a cradle when he some day or another should have children himself. So the little maiden walked on with her tiny naked feet that were quite red and blue from the cold. She carried a quantity of matches in an old apron, and she held a bundle of them in her hand. Nobody had bought anything from her the whole livelong day. No one had given her even a single farthing. She crept along trembling with cold and hunger, a very picture of sorrow, this poor little thing. The flakes of snow covered her long fair hair, which fell in beautiful curls all around her neck. But of that, of course, she never once thought. From all the windows the candles were gleaming, and it smelled so deliciously of roast goose, for you know it was New Year's Eve, and yes, she thought of that. In a corner formed by two houses, of which one advanced more than the other, she seated herself down and cowered. Her little feet she had drawn close up to her, but she grew colder and colder, and to go home she did not venture, for she had not sold any matches, and could not bring a farthing of money. From her father she would certainly get blows, and at a time it was cold too, for above her she had only the roof, through which the wind whistled, even though the largest cracks were stopped up with straws and rags. Her little hands were almost numb with cold. Oh, a match might afford her a world of comfort, if she only dared take a single one out of the bundle, draw it against the wall, and warm her fingers by it. She drew one out. how it blazed, how it burnt. It was a warm, bright flame like a candle, and she held her hands over it. It was a wonderful light. It seemed really to the little maiden as though she were sitting before a large iron stove with burnished brass feet and a brass ornament at the top. The fire burned with such blessed influence. It warmed so delightfully. The little girl had already stretched out her feet to feel the warmth too. But the small flame went out, and the stove vanished. She had only the remains of a little burnt-out match in her hand. She rubbed another against the wall. It burned brightly, and where the light fell on the wall, there the wall became transparent like a veil, so that she could see into the room. On the table was spread a snow-white tablecloth, and upon it a splendid porcelain service, and the roast goose was steaming famously with its stuffing of apple and dried plums. And there was still more. The goose hopped down from the dish, reeled about on the floor with a knife and a fork in its breast, till it came up to the poor little girl, when the match went out and nothing but the thick, cold, damp wall was left behind. She lit another match. Now there she was, sitting under the most magnificent Christmas tree. It was still large and more decorated than the one she had seen through the glass door in the rich merchant's house. Thousands of lights were burning on the green branches, and the gaily colored pictures, such as she had seen in the shop windows, looked down upon her. The little maiden stretched out her hands toward them when the match went out. The lights of the Christmas tree rose higher and higher. She saw them now as stars in heaven. One fell down and formed a long trail of fire. "Someone is just dead," said the little girl, for her old grandma, the only person who had loved her and who was now no more, had told her that when a star falls, a soul ascends to God. She drew another match against the wall. It was again light, and in the luster there stood an old grandma, so bright and radiant, so mild, with such an expression of love. "Grandma," cried the little one, "oh, take me with you. You go away when the match burns out. You vanish like the warm stove, like the delicious roast goose, and like that magnificent Christmas tree." And she rubbed the whole bundle of matches quickly against the wall, for she wanted to be quite sure of keeping her grandma near her. And the matches gave such a brilliant light that it was brighter than at noonday. Never formerly had the grandma been so beautiful and so tall. She took the little girl on her arm, and both flew in brightness and in joy so high, so very high, and then above was neither cold, nor hunger, nor anxiety. They were with God. But in the corner at the cold hour of dawn sat the poor girl, with rosy cheeks and with a smiling mouth, leaning against the wall, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. Stiff and stark sat the child there with her matches, of which one bundle had been burnt. She wanted to warm herself, the people said. No one had the slightest suspicion of what beautiful things she had seen. No one even dreamed of the splendor in which, with her grandma, she had entered the joys of a new year. that's the end of this story. I hope you liked it. I haven't read that fairy tale in a while, and I had forgotten how very touching and very sad it was. I'm hoping that where you are right now, that it is very warm, and that you are surrounded by at least one person, and hopefully many people, who care about you and love you. Because the loneliness of this little match girl is just truly sorrowful. And it makes me very appreciative to be in a loving and warm house. So I hope you're feeling the same. So please have the most wonderful of dreams and the most magic of dreams. And I will be back soon to read you more tales from Hans Christian Andersen. Have a lovely sleep and good night.